Start with a personal experience. We know that this has occurred in the domestic violence movement as well as sexual assault movement, and we follow that model in the anti-trafficking movement. And the past is not very long ago for this movement in Los Angeles. We are only 15 years from the infamous El Monte sweatshop workers case that shaped the beginnings of an organization in relation to abolish slavery and trafficking, the general community's awareness and response and idea and concept of what trafficking is, as well as the city's response to human trafficking. We've seen that manifest through the anti-trafficking task force with the LAPD who heads it. So we asked, how did this case of exploited Thai workers become one of the early case studies to inform policy addressing what we have termed human trafficking and how we address and assist trafficked persons? It was on-the-job training for all of us. It was a responsive action to figure out what is this mess, if you will, and what is this beyond workers who weren't paid, and unfortunately in their discovery were put into deportation proceedings. Was that the correct response? Did we even identify what we saw? What is this? So we had to name it. We had to figure out what it is, and the end result is, how are we going to empower survivors from their experiences? How do we do that as a community? So together we developed a response that we like to say is very culturally and linguistically appropriate to addressing this crime. I came into the human trafficking field with a background in violence against women. I started my work with direct services to sexual assault and domestic violence victims, and eventually to human trafficking victims. And I thought it was important to work directly with victims because they inform my practice. They tell me what is the most appropriate way to do survivor-centered advocacy. Because without their narrative, without their personal experience, I wouldn't be doing the work correctly. I would do it haphazardly, I would do it irresponsibly, and then I would do it with an injustice, further injustice to the survivors. And as we know that human trafficking encompasses multiple victimizations, it was really important for me to realize how survivors needed me to facilitate their healing, their advocacy work. We also are talking about new directions and collaborations. And in this year's annual Department of Justice National Human Trafficking Conference, Ambassador Louis de Baca, in his conference address, talked about promise and progress of the anti-trafficking work in the US specifically, and the impact of the TVPA. He stated that no country, including the United States, has attained a sophisticated or truly comprehensive response to this massive, ever-increasing, ever-changing crime. 10 years of focused efforts is the mere infancy of a movement. Every country is still learning what trafficking is and what works in response to it. And that is so true. Even though we're 15 years after El Monte, we're still shaping what our response is. We're still shaping, what is this definition of trafficking? Do we approach it from the federal definition of trafficking? Do we shape it from our definition as a community-based organization, as a migrant rights organization? So clearly, we still have a lot of work to do to head towards an ideal progressive movement in addressing anti-trafficking, and also creating a truly holistic and collaborative model of working with survivors towards a survivor-centered advocacy. And Denise alluded to this and spoke to this a little bit, is research. We still don't have a clear picture of what this trafficking looks like, even within our own communities. We're still shaping it. And I would hope that through the work of the task force, that we can get a little bit of a clearer picture of what exactly it looks like here in Los Angeles. And that also survivors are included in that information gathering. And that's what I believe survivor-centered advocacy is yes, it's this, this collaboration of government organizations, of CBOs, but we also have to include survivors as well. Without them, we can't, again, appropriately respond to it. They inform our work. And they themselves have a place at the table. And I see oftentimes around the country that survivors aren't really included in creating that picture, or being asked, what do you think is the appropriate response in our community to address this? So Los Angeles, as Denise mentioned, is very forward-thinking. And we see this happening as a great example at CAST through their Survivor Advisory Caucus, and Vanessa Alonso will talk a little bit more about that later on. How they facilitate and empower a survivor to utilize their experience and their voices in whichever way that they want it to be. Whether that's the silent advocate who is willing to write petitions and send those letters or their signatures to the representatives, or the upfront advocate, like Maria, who is willing to show her face and be an example and be the voice on behalf of other survivors across her community and across the country as well. We are all familiar with the saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, I would like to change it a bit to say it takes a community to empower survivors. And that also includes survivors in that community. We need to make it victim-centered. We see that as an example in the TVPA, but we also need to do that in practice within our organizations and within our, outside of these structured environments within our community as community members. And we also have to recognize that survivors' autonomy. We do see them at a point in time. And sometimes the response is we just see them as an exploited person. But they were a mother, a sister, a cousin, a person before that. And if we don't see that person as a whole, then we're missing completely a true sense of survivor-centered advocacy. We need to holistically see that person and again, bring them to the table because they have a voice just the same as we do. I'm going to quickly conclude because, again, I'm going to give Maria her time. Survivors have hopes and dreams that were stunted by their exploitation and trafficking experience. And I think we are very honored to be able to help make those dreams come true by creating systems and communities that provide the tools and resources for the survivor to empower themselves and to be able to live a life of self-sufficiency. Thank you. Yes.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here today. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's always beautiful to be able to share my story, to help others, and also to educate others about human trafficking. A lot of times people ask themselves, what is human trafficking? What's really happening that people keep saying human trafficking? Well, human trafficking, I was one of them. I am a survivor of human trafficking. And I am here today to share my story with all of you, so that way you have an idea, and also to put yourself in my shoes for a minute and say, okay, if she's doing it, even though she is a survivor, why can I do it? Well, at the age of late 15s, I was gonna be 16, I came to this country. I came legal. And I emphasize the word legal because a lot of people, when they write articles, they said, in some of those articles, people put those little comments and says, well, she deserves that because she was illegal. And I don't think legal or illegal person deserves to be going through that. And I came to this country legal again with my sister. I came with my father and stayed with my sister. I supposed to be here for a few days, a few weeks with my father and go back, but actually I stayed with my sister. Not even a month I was in this country when a woman approached me on the street asking me if I want a job. And I said yes, of course. I was young. I wanted a job, I wanted to work, I want to earn money, and I told her yes. But the funny part about it was that she told me not to tell my family. And to me, it was a good idea because surprising my family with a job, that would be good. So I didn't tell my family. They passed by and she didn't come again. So I even forgot about it, and I thought she forgot about it, but later on she shows up. And by then she's telling me if I still want the job, which I told her yes. At the moment I was with my brother-in-law and myself at the house. He was in the garden and I was inside of the house, but I came out walking and she saw me. So she asked me if I want the job again, and I said yes. So she says, let's go. I didn't want to go with just going like that without telling my family. I want to tell someone that I was going to go. But she mentioned it to me that it was going to be just a few minutes. We're not going to take long. So I said, okay, let's go. Well, the ride took a while. It was like 45 minutes to an hour. And we got to the place where my trafficker was waiting for us. We got there, it was an old man. It was on his 68 or 70. He greeted us, he shook my hand and welcomed me and her in the house. And I sit in the living room, they go in one of the bedrooms, they talk and talk. While I'm sitting in the living room, I noticed that the house has locks, extra locks on the windows and locks on the doors, but I didn't know what was happening. I didn't have any idea. But of course, something was telling me that I was in the wrong place. That time they were talking and I'm looking around and I'm feeling, my gut feeling telling me that I'm in the wrong place, but I didn't pay attention to that. They come out after a while, probably an hour or longer. They come out and I said, let's go, can you please take me back? And then they look at each other and they said, and he says, why don't you stay here until my wife comes home and you meet her? I don't want to, but between them two, they convinced me to stay there. So in order for me to stay there, I need to call my family and let them know where I was going to stay. He removed the lock from the phone because he had a lock on the phone. Those rolling phones, he had a lock on the phone. He removed it. I called my sister. That was the only thing I knew. I didn't even know where I was. I didn't even know these people. I didn't even know the address. I didn't have money with me. Nothing. It was just me, just walking in the street, just walking without nothing. And then I go to this house with nothing. So I called my sister. When I called my sister, she was very unhappy. She started telling me, how can you stay there? How can you gonna stay in a place where you don't know these people? And she tells me, no, you need to come home. So this man kept telling me that he's gonna take me home the next day. I take you home tomorrow. Well, that tomorrow never came. I'm telling my sister that he's telling me that he's gonna take me home tomorrow. She wants to know the address, the name, the phone number, where I'm at, where is the city, where is this place. Every time that I ask him about his name, address, and the whole information, he keeps shaking his finger and telling me, don't worry, I take you home tomorrow. Don't worry, I take you home tomorrow. Well, I convinced my sister. My sister says, okay, when I said it was an elderly man and he had a wife, so my sister, that put my sister on ease. She thought, okay, it's gonna be okay. Well, that night I met the wife. She came from work. They assigned me a place where I was going to sleep. The room where I was going to sleep, it had an altar. The altar had red curtains, had a picture of Jesus Christ with the open arms and linen. And then I got close to there because he says, I can clean the house, I can do everything. The job consisted of cleaning the house and answering phones. Well, he says, I can clean everywhere and everything, but do not open those red curtains. But I noticed that around the altar, he had like a little hinge from the altar up and down. And he had a lot of little jars, bottles with portions inside. Portions like a dirt, like pictures, like little dolls with thread and something like that. Was kind of scary. But I'm looking at that and wondering what it was that. And that was the room where I was gonna sleep. So I slept in that room. The next day comes and he takes his wife to work, and I said, are you gonna take me home? And he says, no, I'm very busy. He goes in the room where I slept and he closed the door and he stays there till late. Then he comes out and it's already late. He says it's late, so it's another day. So by then I'm already worried and I wanna go home. The same routine, wife comes and everything. The next day, the same thing. By then I'm already kind of demanding. I said, I want to go home. Can you please take me home? And he gets upset. He goes to the same room, slams the door, and stays there for a while. By then I'm crying. I cannot go nowhere. Doors are locked. Everything is locked. It's not that I just can go and open the door and go out. This man comes later on, hours later. I'm sitting in the living room, in the couch. By then I'm crying. He says to me, stands in front of me and tells me that I was not gonna go nowhere, that he had paid $200 for me. I was his slave, and I was there for him to do whatever he wants to do to me. By then I got scared because he started getting closer to me. So I get up. Even though the house was little, I tried to run around the house inside, around the tables, around everywhere that I could to defend myself from him, not to touch me. He got tired, he got mad, he was very angry, and because the chasing took us a while. Then he opened the side door, because the house is one line long. He opened the side door, and he tells me, get out. But he placed his arm around the door frame. And I'm looking at him. The chances for me to get out with him, without him catching were very little. But I was looking and wondering how I was going to be able to manage to get out of there. I'm just thinking. Finally, I got brave and I tried to run out of the house. I was not lucky. He was able to grab me. He grabbed me. He tore up everything that I possessed in my body and pushed me out of the room, out of the house, like a newborn baby. I was outside and he closed the door and he was looking at me, laughing. I'm outside, the car's driving by. I'm just getting against the wall so people don't see me. And I'm begging for my clothes. I'm not begging to come back in. I'm begging for my clothes. And he's laughing at me. Finally, he opens the door and asks me if I want my clothes. And I said yes. He throws my clothes. And when I go down to get my clothes, I don't know what he did. I don't remember. I don't know if he pushed me. I don't know if he punched me or kicked me. I don't know. I just remember waking up that he had raped me with my injury on my head. And he has said, standing by my feet, notice myself that I've been raped. And he says that I better not say anything or do anything because he's a witch. No one can do anything to him. And he knows where my family lives and works and described the ways how he was going to kill my family. At that moment, everything came down on my life. What can I do? I came from a village. I came from a place where you don't go with a man till you marry. How can I tell my family what these men have done to me? The only thing I did that day is I got up, I went into the tub and bathed for hours and hours. After that, I came out and he was okay, like he hadn't done anything. And he asked me to warm up some food because he was hungry. I did it. But my health started in there. That day, that's when everything went down for me. it was either my family or me put up with all of this. This abuse lasted over 5 years. It was day after day. It was not only sexual, it was physical, it was emotional, and spiritual. Because the threats from him that always telling me that the devil comes to see him, that the devil was there, that he making circles in the house of candles and putting himself in the middle, and telling me that if I don't obey him, what he was gonna do to me or my family. It was a torture every day. I was the one that was doing everything in the house. I was the one that was getting the beatings. I was the one that always almost got killed. I'm sitting today in front of you and here today, and I think I am a miracle. Because so many times he tried to kill me. With knives, with guns, with ice picks from the fireplace, with everything. Everything that he had in hands, or with his own hands. So I'm here today. Like I said, the abuse was for over 6 years. Excuse me, for over 5 years. After that, when I reached 18, he sent a friend of his with me to look for a job. A job that luckily I got hired right away. The conditions were for me to work every overtime that they gave me every day. And my check was being given to him every Friday. What I was getting back from the check was change. Just to call him if I stay overtime, so he can come and pick me up. You're probably wondering yourself, if she was working, why didn't she leave? Well, it was not easy. My family was on the line. My family could have been killed. But not only that, I was afraid of him because he had a crystal ball and had told me that he can see everything what I do, whoever I talk, and whatever I think. He was in control of my mind. And I believe it. I did believe everything. Especially because he had a lot of people who come to see him. Every time that he had clients, he put me outside of the house. He had this big old cemetery, how they call, like for the cemetery stone in the back of the house. And he had said that someone was in there, that he had killed somebody and put it buried in there. So my belief was that there was somebody out there. I don't know. Through time, working, one day, a young couple comes and live in his garage apartment. And he started to pursue the wife. They were young. She was very pretty. And he started doing witchcraft in their apartment, going in their house and everything, enraging this young man. One day, this young man kills this old man. I was getting ready to go to work in the morning when I hear this screaming. He screamed my name. And of course, every time that he screamed my name or calls me, I have to be there. So I was putting my pants on when I hear him screaming, and I just throw the pants away and I walk out with a long nightgown. When I walk out of the house, because he was outside, he was on the ground. This young man had killed this old man. I felt that something lift me up from the ground. I went into shock. This young man gave me the piece of wood that he used to kill this man and told me, put it under the house, which I did it. I ate a piece of wood. I did what he had told me. I never denied it. I always told the police what I have done. And that makes me part of the crime. For that moment, I hid it. A few minutes, I don't know how long it took. The house was full of police, full of people, and my family were there. When my family and everybody were there, I just remember my sister taking me with her. But a few days later, the police called my sister and told her that they had some questions to ask me, to bring me to the police station. So she brought me. And that was the last day that my sister saw me free. I was arrested. I went to jail. I fought my case for a year. While I was fighting my case, I was cheated by everything. The attorney that I have that was representing me, I was his first criminal case. He was disbarred. He had been fighting his own beef because he got caught using and selling drugs. So he was disbarred. But he was my attorney. Well, that trial lasted a year. Under the promise of him telling my family that I was going to be home by Christmas. And it was over 20-something Christmas. After that, I came home. So I got sentenced to 25 years to life. I went to prison. I did 22 years and a half. But I used those years for my benefit because I'm here today. After I was released from prison, INS picked me up because even though I was legal, they had taken my green card away from me due to the 9/11. I think everybody's familiar with that. And I spent another 5 months and 7 days in San Pedro in INS, which is immigration, fighting again not to be deported. I fought it. I got attorneys who donate their time, pro bono attorneys who actually helped me to stay here. I was actually deported, but I asked for my case to be appealed. And that was time for them to get some time and work on my T visa. So I got my T visa. On May 25th of 2004, I was released from everywhere, prison and INS immigration. And I've been out on May 25th of this month, and this year, it will be 6 years of me being free. And it's beautiful to be out. And now I'm working. I'm working trying to get people involved in this issue. Because I haven't finished. I still have a lot of things that I need to do. Thank you very much. And if there's any questions, I don't know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. You're just an extraordinary individual, truly. Many individuals who went through abuse for different reasons, maybe they don't have the courage, or maybe they're worried about their families, they don't want to speak out in public like you do. How do you see possibilities of working with them, but also protecting their private lives, so that we can see more individuals like yourselves who have experienced the abuse become the leaders of the anti-trafficking movement? And how can we in the audience help you with that?
That is a very good question. A lot of times, it's very hard for a victim to share what we went through. But actually, we have to put that pain to the side. I'm not going to tell you that it doesn't affect me. It's going to affect the rest of my life. But the strength please forgive me. Sometimes I don't want to get emotional, and it's very hard. I said the strength that I have today, it's built through all what I went through and seeing my family, how much they fight for me to be here today. And the only way that I can pay back to the people who actually put the trust on me, and my family that put their loyalty to get me out, I need to pay back, and it's only by saving others. And the strength comes within you. You need to believe in yourself and put the pain to the side and keep going. I cannot be at the corner feeling what I went through almost over 30 years of my life, because that's not going to help me, and it's not going to help you. So I want to continue helping and keep people out of that, because as a victims, sometimes we feel that people don't understand us. But if one person does not understand me, it's okay. 9 did, and I'm a winner. And that's what I look for. To find people who actually have some empathy, not for what had happened to me, but what can happen to other people that is still growing up. I want to have healthy people in this world. I don't want to have damaged people like me. But I'm using this pain to help others. And it's very hard for victims to talk. But I push myself. This is my mission, and I want to do it till I die. Did I answer your question?
Now I'm choked up. Magnificently, thank you.
Maria, I know you've done some things very deliberately to rebuild your own confidence in yourself. What were some of the things that you did, the steps you took while you were in prison, and the things you did to survive and to become more whole again?
It took years for me to rebuild myself. I was timid. I was shy. When I hear the word witchcraft, I used to hide. When I used to hear people that said things about my case, because my case was weird. It was weird. I used to hide. I used to be just like, oh my God, they're talking about me. But one day I decided that I'm not gonna let that bother me anymore. Because yes, I did hold a lot of anger before. I had anger problems. I was angry with society, with my attorney, with the judge, with the DA, with all the people. I remember seeing a bunch of people in there, instead of helping me, they pushed me down to the hole. They didn't care. And they throw the key away. They actually throw the key away, wanting for me to die or rot in prison. But I fought for it. The way how I fought for it, it's first of all, I work in myself. Getting rid of that anger. I cry a lot. I cry a lot because hate, it's painful. The bitterness was very painful. I got rid of that. And I choose to do different. Even though I always got myself enrolled in school, because when I got arrested, I didn't speak English. I didn't understand anything. So that was one of the things that I felt that was against me. So I learned how to defend myself. Then from there, I learned more than just how to defend myself. I put myself into college. I put myself into different programs. and I started rebuilding myself, and I started feeling good about myself, and I got rid of that bitterness and anger. And instead of me just a number in prison, I became a person to help others. Even though I was in prison, I helped a lot of people by doing a lot of things. I work with doctors, I work with different people. I always work with people, and I love it. So that was what helps me to rebuild myself, working with people and loving people.
This is not to romanticize anything you said at all, but there's such resilience and such strength in your story that I have to imagine that other immigrants in your similar situation have some of that same bottom line level of hope or trust or something to even migrate in the first place that probably serves you well. You meaning you as an individual, but also the group as a whole, is something to really build on and to think about what you're carrying with you inside yourself that is going to allow you to cope and survive and strengthen all of that. And it's making my mind race forward to think about all the ways in which we won't just use the buzzword empowerment, but really what it means to empower that and build on it.
I love the word. Every time that I hear it, you use it. Vanessa use it everywhere where I go. People use empowerment. I got that. I got that one. And
What gives it meaning?
Has a meaning to me. And on August of last year, I got my green card again. And one of my dreams and one of my goals is to start working with people outside, not only here, but I want to travel. I want to go to villages. I want to go to places where people has no idea the meaning of human traffic, and where they go, the traffickers target those places and lie to these parents, telling them that their daughter is going to be in school, the daughter is going to be working, the daughter is going to have a family, she's going to be sending you money. And then, and the type of false promises, they let their daughters come to here. They never hear from them because the daughter probably got killed, or because the daughter they have her slavery working, and she cannot even take care of herself because she's under their power. How can she take care of herself? She cannot even do anything. So I want to go to villages and have materials, have educational materials where people, poor people, can find out the meaning of human trafficking and identify those traffickers and said, no, you cannot take my daughter. Or just, if they have a way, how can they report them with the police or do something about it, do it. Because that's why we have so much traffickers and victims. One trafficker has about 100 or 200 victims, and it's not fair. So that's what I want to do with my life. And I look forward to do that. Thank you.